Alright, we're going to check out this CVLIFE JackalHowl 4x32 little compact scope here, made for 22 long rifles. So 4x32, it's just a fixed 4 power magnification. There's no adjustability there, you just get 4x, that's all it is. 32 being the size of the objective there. It's got 30 MOA of adjustment for windage and elevation, 1/4 inch per click at 100 yards. Pretty crisp, especially for the price. I don't feel any like mush or anything in it there. Comes with your rings. Obviously flip up scope caps here that are just black. There's a diopter underneath the rear cap for quick eye focus there. And what blows me away about this guy is just how small and light it is, which is, I guess, you know, the theme. Let me get these back on here. I'll come on it. There we go. I got small hands, so if I had bigger hands like most guys have, this would look even more dwarfed. So this guy's only about 8 inches long and weighs about 10 ounces. And, you know, this is ideal for if you want to put it on a nice little small compact 22. That way it's not going to have a big freaking honking scope on it, or you don't want to increase your carry weight very much, you know. I guess that's the idea behind it, which pretty good idea, honestly, because I've ran a lot of scopes on a lot of 22s over the years, and most of the time they're pretty oversized, and they certainly add a lot of carry weight to it. So the most interesting thing, I guess, would be that this has, they advertise it, it's got a BDC Reticle, and it's got holdover marks. If you zero it for 100 yards, it's got holdover marks supposedly for 200, 300, 400, and 500 yards. Not only is it advertised as such in the listing, but I double checked, and the paperwork, where does it say in here? Oh, up here. You can see there, representing 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 yards, BDC marks, and somewhere on here it does say 422 long rifle. So honestly, I'm a little skeptical about that, and I'm definitely going to test it out because honestly, it looks like they just kind of copied a 223 556 BDC reticle. So I'm not real confident that the shots are actually going to line up with that. Which, on that note, I asked them prior to them sending this out to me, because I didn't want there to be any excuses that I didn't use the right bullet or anything like that, or that they had it calibrated for a faster 22 long rifle cartridge or anything like that. And so I asked them, hey, we know, what's this calibrated for? What bullet weight at what speed? And the response I got back was that it's not set for any specific 22 long rifle load, that just that the BDC marks will coincide with most of the popular 22 long rifle loadings. So I'm just going to use your basic run-of-the-mill 40 grain 22 long rifle high velocity Gila Super Extra at 1255 feet per second advertised, and we'll see if it lines up with any of those BDC marks. Also, real quick before we head down to the range to test this thing out, my buddy John over at Boomstick Revenge actually pointed this out. There's not a whole lot of room for these scope rings to slide back and forth, or for the scope to slide back and forth in the rings before it steps up here, steps up there, or you're going to be hitting your turrets there. So there's not very much room of adjustment, so you pretty much get what you get. So it's going to be, depending on your rifle, it will be best suited for something that has a Picatinny rail like this, which those are 20 millimeter / Picatinny rail scope mounts on there. So you're going to be best suited having something like that, but longer than this. So you're going to be able to, you know, move the scope back and forth quite a bit. That way you can get it where you need it, you know, so it lines up with your eye correctly, not too far away, not too close, which, by the way, it's got about a 4-inch eye relief on it. But on my 1022 here, they make Picatinny mounts for these, but here's what I have. I think it's more kind of like a Weaver style, but it's not a Picatinny. It's just got those few slots there. So I don't have a whole lot of options as to where it can go. Where the heck did I set that thing? All right, so I've already tried it out. This is way too far forward. That's as far back as I can go with it. As you can see, I have it slid back as far as it'll go in this ring already. And it works. I just got to lean forward on the rifle a little bit to get my eye close enough, which, amazingly enough, 4-inch eye relief is about spot on there. However, I noticed I can be like almost a foot away with my face, and I can still see through the scope. It still shows about 80% of the image with some, like, you know, black haze around the edges. So you can actually get really far away from this thing and still see the crosshairs okay. But for perfection, you will want to be about 4 inches away to get the, you know, full picture like you should. And for me on that 1022 there, I'm just having to lean up on it a little bit to get my face close enough. But with my face far back, even a foot back, I can still actually see through the thing. So that's real interesting. I've never been able to hold my face that far back from a scope before and still actually be able to see through the thing like that. So working on the 0 to 100 here, and it's kind of hard to see, but that bottom right group there, keep hitting the same hole. And if you look at the bottom red dot, you can see I got it zeroed for 100 yards now, and not sure why the camera moved while I was shooting. And just to give you an idea, that's about what she looks like at 100 yards there, other than the fact that it looks much better in person than it does through the camera. So here we are at 200 yards, and before I attempted shooting at my 16-inch steel gong there, I took a few shots at this big white speck off to the left here, just to see how close it was or wasn't. I was completely shocked and excited that it seemed to be pretty much dead on at 200 yards. So at this point I was beginning to think I was wrong, and hey, maybe it'll line up at 300 and 400 yards after all. But anyways, here's some shots on my gong at 200 now that I knew that it was pretty much dead on at 200 with that BDC mark. So hopefully you could hear all the dings when it hit. So there was 4 in a row, no problem at 200 yards. And there's what it looks like at 200 yards. Once again, remember, it looks much better in person than it does on the camera here. Now before I go set the gong out at 300 yards here, I decided I was going to try what I did at 200 again. I'm going to pick something out down there to shoot at first, this time with the 300 BDC mark, because I'm shooting 300 yards now, and see how close it is to what I'm aiming at. I'm going to show you what I was aiming at here in a second, but I want you to pay attention to these shots. The very last shot, it's quieter, and as a result it hits lower, so it was a weaker load, and that certainly affected the impact. And here's where I'm aiming. This orange guy right here is just a clay pigeon. Remember, I said that last one was quieter and went lower. So here's what I see through the scope. Again, much more clear, crisp, all the above in person than trying to get this image through the camera. So obviously it was way off from the 300-yard mark. So I don't know how the heck it lined up at 200, but it's way off at 300. So interestingly, it actually was hitting just a couple inches high of what is supposed to be the 400-yard mark. So I'm actually able to use again, what's supposed to be the 400-yard mark at 300 yards to shoot the steel gong. No clue at all where you would actually be impacting with what is supposed to be the 500-yard mark, the one at the very bottom there, but I would guess probably 350, 375, because 22 is dropping like a rock out there. So if you were actually trying to shoot 500 yards with a 22, you probably won't even be able to see it in the scope. It'll drop out of the field of view of the scope, and I know this because I've shot 22 500 yards. So yeah, not only is the 500 mark going to be way off, but it's going to be so far off you're not even going to see the bullet impact anywhere in the scope. It's going to drop so low. Not that anybody really shoots a 22 500 yards, but hey, they advertise it as being a 500-yard mark, and it is not. But anyways, here's some impacts on that steel at 300 yards, which again I was having to use the 400-yard mark to hit out here at 300 yards. So it's a bummer that those marks didn't line up beyond 200 yards like they were supposed to, but as I said in the beginning of the video, I had pretty high expectations that they wouldn't, because again, they look too similar to 223, 556 BDC marks, and like I said, also I shot 22 500 yards before, and I know the drop is insane all the way out there. But it's still usable. So with the 100-yard zero on there, you know, you'd be, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches high at 50 yards. And then, as we saw, it's actually about dead on at 200. And then while the 300-yard mark is way off at 300, it's actually very close to the 400-yard mark. So you can use the 400-yard, what's supposed to be the 400-yard mark at 300. And then, like I said, probably 350, 375, what is supposed to be the 500-yard mark, would be impacting about at those distances. So it's actually, you know, if you want to shoot long range with low magnification like that anyways, if you're shooting big enough targets, it's not an issue, as what you can see I was doing out here. I mean, actually I was even shooting at that little clay out there at, 300 yards. I could still see it and aim at it, so... it doesn't have to be a massive target to shoot 300 yards. I was shooting at a 3 or 4 inch clay out there. Anyways, the BDC reticle on it is still very much usable. It just doesn't do what they say it does. So I actually like it so much I've decided to keep it on the rifle. So there's obvious perks to having a BDC reticle, and like I said, this one's still usable in some aspect at least. And then again, with it being so light and compact and all that, it fits the smaller rifles great. And I honestly don't even notice the weight that it adds to this, 4.5, 5 pound rifle, that extra 10 ounces. So, that's a perk there too. For something that's not a tack driving competition rifle or a sniper rifle or anything like that, it's perfect. It was way more fun shooting with this little guy up on there, especially since I had holdover marks that I could use, accurately out to 300 yards. It was way better than just iron sights. But anyways, I'll shut up now. If you guys want to check it out, link in the description, as well as links to all the products I use in my videos. If you want to check any of that out, like the steel target, etc., shooting bag. For more scope reviews, check out my parts, accessories, and optics playlist on the channel. But thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you on the next one.